Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to Non Sequitur Nerds. Tonight, we are burdened with glorious purpose because we're going to be talking about the multiverse and reviewing Loki finally, doing our Marvel stuff a little out of order here. But joining me, as always, is this guy over here who's probably a variant of mine. How you doing, Ian?
Well, let's all admit here, you're the variant.
No, I'm the real one. I'm older.
That doesn't
I'm going to
matter in
claim
the
it this
multiverse.
time.
It doesn't matter in the multiverse, Tim. You know that. Um,
Fair enough.
yeah. I'm doing pretty well. Capstone to a pretty busy week, and moving into the weekend.
About time. Dude, I don't know about you, but it has been like humid as crap up here. And working in a factory that doesn't really have air conditioning, I'm in a giant metal box working inside of a smaller metal box with almost no airflow in it. So humidity and heat, it has been brutal this week. Like everybody at work was feeling it.
I should get you one of those like headband like fan things that you just like put around. You wear it on your head, and it just like it's a little battery powered fan.
One of my coworkers actually has two of those because they just burn through batteries. So she brings two with her every day, and they're the neck mounted ones that like point, like you wrap it around your neck and it points up at your face. And she goes, "No,
Oh.
that actually works for the most part."
Does she have long hair and she winds up looking like Fabio all day, just like flowing in the
Well,
wind?
no, because she always like either ties her hair back or does it in like a braid or something like pulled back. But like the fan's like not more than maybe like 4 inches across, so it's not that big.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, there could be a variant of that somewhere out there.
There could a fan that wears a human around their neck.
There you go.
We're
It's
getting
kind
into
of
some
like the
H.R. Geiger imagery there.
right. Well, I mean, yeah. There's multiple different ways that could go, just like the timelines.
Exactly.
So,
Which, thanks to Loki, we're going to jump ahead a little bit. Thanks to Loki, are all kinds of all over the place.
yeah.
Well, I
Well,
shouldn't even say
depends on
thanks
which.
to Loki, but thanks to the other Loki.
Right. I was gonna say, depends on which Loki you want to thank here.
Right.
So, as you guys have figured out, we are talking about Loki today. So this will be a spoiler-tastic episode.
Yep, like
So,
all of ours.
yes, so I will give you to the count of 5 to pause this podcast and come back after you have finished the series. Once we have reached 0 in that countdown, we were going to commence with all of the spoilers. So this has been your one and only warning. So, counting down.
Was I supposed to count your fingers?
No, you weren't.
Well, what
It was
about the
a
people
silent
that
count.
are listening to the audio? Hey, audio listeners, Ian was counting from 5 to 0 on his hand. This is your time's up. We're going to talk now.
Well, the intent was that audio listeners would have a little indicator on their thing that
Okay.
shows them how long 5 seconds is. So,
Okay, fair enough. But all right, so we're getting into spoilers. The biggest thing to come out of this Loki series is they have officially introduced the Marvel multiverse, which
yep.
I to start off the episode, I have a question for you, Ian. Did they not say in Doctor Strange that all the sorcerers draw their powers from the multiverse?
I
Or
believe so. I mean, I'd have to go back and rewatch. It's been a while since I watched Doctor Strange.
okay,
Um,
so the Loki series, a lot of it takes place like in the TVA or around time or outside of time. So for the sorcerers to have been able to draw their power on the multiverse before, like, the whole thing in
well,
Loki would have had to have
it,
happened before even the Ancient One started doing magic for there to be a
well,
multiverse, which means the multiverse already existed, right?
yes and no, because remember the Ancient One also, and again spoilers, I guess for Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
The Ancient One also draws. It's her power from some power, at least from Dormammu's realm,
The
right?
dark
Because that's
dimension, which is
the
another
dark
dimension in the
dimension.
multiverse.
Correct. So
So,
in theory, yeah. But then you hold, the the one who shall remain or whatever.
hmm,
It's possible that he supposedly architected all of this.
right.
Maybe he, wanted there to be the dark dimension or whatever it is.
Okay, that I hadn't thought that way actually, because that thought came across. So I was talking to our mutual friend Kevin yesterday, who had one of the best explanations of the multiverse, like the most beautiful explanations.
That's odd.
Yeah, I know. I was actually really impressed with it. He said the multiverse is like a firework. You shoot it up once and it explodes. That's one universe. You rewind time a little bit, pack all the different chemicals and whatnot in it even slightly differently, it's going to explode a different way. It's still the same firework, but it's still different. And I'm like, that's
correct.
That's actually a really good way to explain it. It's just different enough to be different, but it's made up of the same basic stuff, just in a different way. They present themselves in a different way. Like,
well, I mean, that's the whole. I mean, that's the basis of the term variant.
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's just a slightly different thing. I mean, it's the same thing with like
except for Loki Gator, which is completely different.
Well, yes,
We'll get into
Loki
that
Gator
later.
is. Yeah, Loki Gator is completely different, but also probably the breakaway star of the series.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But I mean, it's really kind of like human genetics, right? Like
Yeah.
we're a bundle of space stuff, and
I mean,
in
yeah.
reality, the the difference between you being a boy or a girl is going to be whether or not you have a chromosome that activates at the right time.
Right. Exactly. At least on a genetic level.
Correct.
But yeah, like he and I were talking about that, and his whole thing is it's sloppy writing. That's his takeaway on it. But like for me, it's you know how Kevin is. For me though,
It's coming from the guy that has a love affair with Zoids.
dude. Okay, don't be dissing Zoids. Zoids is good stuff.
Anyway.
But no, anyway, I hadn't thought about that. That like maybe the one who remains because he even said that things had to happen in a certain order for certain things to happen or not happen. So maybe he allowed, Dormammu's dimension and the other few multiverses to exist, kind of tangential to a sacred timeline. Maybe they were multiverses that wouldn't have affected how he wanted his timeline to go, which is why he allowed them to exist.
It's a distinct possibility.
That makes the most sense. Is that they were ones that whether they existed or didn't exist, it wouldn't have affected his plans anyway.
It's also a possibility that each timeline, each universe itself, actually doesn't necessarily have the dark dimension may not actually be its own timeline or parallel universe, but it actually exists. Every universe has one, and it exists within it. It's kind of like the negative zone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the negative zone is different than the dark dimension, which is all kinds of weird, interwoven parallel universes. Because I think it was, isn't it the negative zone where Annihilus comes from? And I think
is it? I don't remember. Ironically, I was actually reading up on Annihilus the other day, and I don't remember off the top of my head now.
I want to say it's the negative zone that he comes from.
Well, isn't the negative? No, I'm thinking of the Phantom Zones where Superman sends his bad guys. Negative Zone is the thing that Reed Richards managed to tap into.
Yeah, that was where they built the superhero prison during Civil War.
That's right.
It is
a Negative Zone.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure there's even a Spider-Man villain, Negative Man, like the Negative Man, who kind of draws power off of that, if I remember right.
Yeah. So it's very. I mean, we're postulating, pondering, throwing out ideas here. It's possible that every universe has their own version of or timeline or whatever we want to call it, has their own version of the dark dimension and the negative zone and all those other components. Because maybe that's just where that's just how the universe is interwoven. Sorry.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But Loki.
Yeah. Now that we spent the first 10 minutes of the episode answering a question that I had, let's actually talk about Loki and get into it. Okay, so just to kind of start off, overall, like, did you like it? I mean, I know it with your busy schedule, it did take you longer than I to watch it, and I've been like bugging you for weeks, dude. Finish it. I need to gush about it to you. But
yeah,
did you like it?
I apologize. No, I really did enjoy it. In reality, I don't think there's been a Marvel property that I haven't enjoyed.
Yeah.
In some way, shape, or form. Now, that said, their TV shows have been fantastic.
Dude, okay, like, you know me. I used to say for the longest time, DC is the king of TV shows. I think Marvel just staged a coup and killed the king. I'm gonna call it. Every one of their, like, even Falcon and Winter Soldier, which I like, out of all of them, that was the one that I was least excited about. But even that was a good show. I enjoyed it. I wanted to keep watching it.
Well, speaking of that and tangent parallel universes, I assume based on you nodding, you saw that
Yep.
Anthony Mackie has been officially cast in Captain America 4.
So it is officially happening with him as Cap.
Correct.
Yep.
And no word yet on whether or not Sebastian Stan will be coming back as Bucky, but
I mean,
at minimum they'd probably at least have a cameo,
yeah,
or maybe at minimum, or you never know. Maybe they're gonna have him like a special mid-credit or after-credit scene where he comes in setting the stage for the next thing to happen.
It's Marvel. Who knows?
Yeah. So no, I really enjoyed Loki. I thought it was in spite of what Kevin says, I thought it was intelligently written. The acting was superb. It's very hard to beat Tom Hiddleston. I think he's at his don't want to say his peak, but he's at his best when he gets to play as Loki.
Oh, absolutely.
I think he just enjoys the character, just has a lot of fun with it. So he just kind of gets to let loose.
Right. Well, ironically, when he started working with Marvel, he originally auditioned for Thor, for the part of Thor.
Yep.
And yeah, they ended up casting him as Loki because they're like, no, we think you'd be fantastic for this. And I think they made a phenomenal call on that one.
Yeah, and there have been questionable decisions that Marvel has made like over the years with casting, where people hear about castings. I mean, even Robert Downey Jr.'s casting was controversial originally.
And everybody they think Iron Man, they think Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, I mean, he is Tony Stark.
He is Iron Man.
Correct. He absolutely made that character. I mean, even Chris Evans being cast as Captain America, people are like, really?
The Human Torch guy? And
really, the guy that was from Not Another Teen Movie?
Oh god, I forgot about that. The whipped cream scene.
yeah, exactly. It's kind of like this goofy kid or whatever, and he was a fantastic Cap.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't imagine Steve Rogers as anybody other than him.
Like the only I know there were two other, I don't know if they were fan castings or if they were people that had auditioned but didn't get it. But I know people said oh god, I cannot think of his name now. From The Office.
Oh, John
Krasinski.
Krasinski, yeah.
Like, I could have seen him, especially as bearded Cap. Like, I could have seen him as like a more war weary Cap. But now everybody's saying, dude, make him Reed Richards, which I am all for that. And then the other is I am horrible with names tonight. Dude from Supernatural.
Oh, I never watched
Jensen
that show,
Ackles. Jensen Ackles.
Okay.
Yeah, because Padalecki's the moose. Yeah. Anybody that watches Supernatural will probably get that. Jensen Ackles, like, I could have seen him as Cap. And now, ironically, he's voicing Batman. So
I am Batman.
Exactly. Which I haven't seen yet, but that's another story. No, I agree. I think, up through Falcon and Winter Soldier, WandaVision was my favorite. Because, that's the thing I've always liked about Marvel, is they always have these kind of, off-the-walls, weird ideas. Which is why I'm so excited for What If, which is up to its second episode now. As of the time of this recording, anyway. Loki took that, weirdness up to a whole nother level. I love Tom Hiddleston as Loki. I love the Thor, the whole Thor pantheon. All the Thor stories I've always enjoyed because I've always been a fan of Norse mythology. And obviously, the Marvel take they take some liberties on stuff versus how it actually was, but I enjoy it for what it is and how they present it. Loki, since the first Thor movie, has been one of my favorite MCU characters. And actually seeing him, getting to have a whole show of Loki and seeing his character growth again.
Loki and Lokis.
Loki and Loki and Loki and Loki and Loki. All the Lokis are my favorite characters. All in all, it is so far my favorite MCU series. So, I'm I'm glad it's getting a second season. Spoiler. Well, we're past spoiler
right.
point. It's getting a second season. That is the after credit scene of the last episode. Is they announce, hey, Loki will return in season 2. So it's going to be interesting to see, especially now that they've opened everything up. It's going to be interesting to see where they go with the series now that they've opened Pandora's box effectively.
Yeah, I mean, going back to what you said about Marvel doing some of like weird, crazy, off the wall things. Like,
Yeah.
I would, I feel like any character could really work in this, in that position with, it's like there's multiple variants of them. Okay, cool. You could
Yeah.
literally stick anybody in there. Like,
Yeah.
but Loki, being who he is, the god of mischief, the supreme narcissist that he is,
Yeah, he is.
um, he works well for that. And I would just love to have been in the pitch meeting for that
Oh,
for that
absolutely.
show.
Yeah.
It's just like so off the wall. It's like, so we're gonna remember how we killed Loki. We're gonna bring him back, okay? And then we're gonna make a bunch of other Lokis that are different, but they're all Loki. I'm listening.
Right.
Then we're gonna make them. We're gonna have them in multiverses, like screwing with timelines. You had me at Loki.
Right. Dude, Marvel should be glad that we're not on like their board of directors that makes these decisions. So we're like, new superhero movie, do it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Get Favreau in here.
Yeah. Well, he's busy. He's busy currently rewriting and fixing the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
Along with Filoni, thank God.
Yeah.
So it was a very intelligently written show. I thought the casting was fantastic.
Oh,
as
absolutely.
Well. The inclusion of Owen Wilson as Mobius. He's a fantastic character. I love
absolutely.
Mobius.
Yes.
He's funny. He's interesting, and it's just like the whole way that it's interwoven was really.
While saying, and he and Tom Hiddleston, they like in character, they work with each other so incredibly well.
Yeah,
I mean,
they have
good, Mobius is
good chemistry.
They're good cop, bad cop. I mean, it works though, but
quite literally.
Quite
literally.
I mean, yeah, because to start off with the series, it opens up with the Loki that we saw in Endgame when they botched their first time heist, getting the Tesseract and disappearing. This immediately starts with Loki teleporting somewhere, not sure how he got there.
Middle of Mongolia.
Yeah, middle of Mongolia, not sure how he got there, threatening the locals who have no idea what he's saying. And then the TVA, the Time Variance Authority, who are kind of at the
Time police.
Well, yeah, I don't want to say they're the antagonists of the series, but at least at the beginning, that's kind of how they're set up to be.
Yep.
They literally arrest Loki for disrupting time because Loki should have not disappeared at that point. He should have gotten taken back to Asgard, leading up to the events of Thor 2. But this Loki didn't. So that makes him what's known as a variant, which is literally, like the name implies, it is a alternate version of something that should be established. It is Loki, but it is not the Loki that should be where and what he is. Which that opens up the TVA's whole thing of they are policing what is known as a sacred timeline, where it is a set branch in time that the supreme leaders of the TVA, the timekeepers, who are these like mysterious, shadowy people running everything behind the scenes, they have figured out this is where time should begin and this is where time should end, and they have plotted out everything along it. That is their whole purpose in life, and they are protecting the timeline from branching off. And that's what the TVA steps in. If something happens in a timeline, let's say Tony Stark, an example. Let's say he didn't get that shrapnel in his chest and he wasn't captured. He would have never became Iron Man. That was his whole driving point. If he would have escaped, his time would have been entirely different. If that was to happen, the TVA would step in, remove that Tony Stark from that timeline, do what's called pruning that timeline, which is erasing it, and setting stuff back to where it should be for Tony Stark to become Iron Man again. So they capture Loki. They explain all this to him. He thinks I'm Loki. You can't arrest me. I'm a god. Well, magic doesn't work in the TVA, so he doesn't really have a leg to stand on, sadly. He's brought to court, which like if that court scene, there's no way you can get an innocent verdict. You're always guilty because by virtue of being a variant, you have changed time. So it's a mock court, which is kind of a
Yeah, but
yeah.
if you look at the court though, like ultimately what what we find out later in the series,
Yeah.
about the TVA, the court has the potential to recruit people to work in the TVA
Yes.
as as known variants, which in reality is what happens to Loki.
Yep.
He's defended by Mobius, Owen Wilson, and gets approval to have him kind of on a temp basis, or a trial basis,
Yep.
working as a member of the TVA. And you find out really what Mobius's entire case history, and what he is supposed to be doing is basically catching a variant Loki that is causing havoc within the timeline. And so, it what do they say? It takes a thief to catch a thief, or something like that.
Yeah.
And basically, that's what they do. They recruit they recruit Tom Hiddleston, Loki, to catch Loki.
Yeah.
Um, so it sets up a really interesting and really kind of fun romp. And I'll say this: the aesthetic of the TVA and the whole thing, it's that like 80s.
Oh, I'd say even like 60s or
60,
70s.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry. It's more like the 60s era. They got the skinny short ties and the
Like
high waisted.
retro TVs everywhere.
Yeah,
Although, like, did you notice that anytime they show like anything retro, it's typically in the TVA and it's always pristine. Anytime you see any future tech, it's always getting destroyed or in disrepair. Did you
yeah,
notice that when you were watching it?
yeah. I
Yeah,
did notice that.
which is a nice little
Um,
visual flair, kind of showing that the TVA is perfect. They have everything lined up.
yep. And apparently the 60s was the epitome of technology.
Yeah,
Anyway,
exactly.
so yeah, I mean, a very very cool, very interesting aesthetic. Moving ahead a little bit, Loki is working for the TVA, working with Mobius, trying to, reviewing case histories and whatnot, basically trying to find Loki. I want to take a moment and pause and shout out to the fact that Timmy Turner is now in the Marvel universe, and what I mean by that is Tara Strong voices Miss Minute,
Yep.
the animated clock thing. That's in this. It's kind of like their personal assistant
Yeah, it's a like a
type thing.
well, and like that scene where Loki's training to be a TVA agent by answering like quiz questions about if this happens, what should you do? If this happens,
Right.
what should you do? Anybody that's ever worked for any corporate business has seen those kind of pointless questionnaires you take during training. It's like option A, should you do the correct answer? Option B, should you light the store on fire? Option C, should you curl up in the fetal position and cry? I mean, it's pretty obvious what the right answers are. But as he's sitting
Karen
there,
walks into the store and immediately starts berating you. What do you do?
light the store on fire.
And
But no,
curl up
as
in the fetal position while everything burns around you.
exactly.
This is fine.
But no, as Loki's doing his training, Miss Minutes is there, and Loki's like, "So, are you real or are you a hologram or are you an AI?" And she goes, kind of a little of all of that, I guess." Like even Miss Minutes, well, at least if she knows, she's not letting on. But it's actually she like I'm just me. I don't know.
Yep. And as I said, she is voiced by Tara Strong, who is one of the major hitters in
Oh
the
yeah, she
voice
is.
acting industry. Has done Raven in Teen Titans. Timmy Turner, as I said, a plethora of others.
Oh,
My Little Pony.
super versatile. Super
Yeah,
versatile.
very versatile, extremely versatile. Uh, was in Chowder. She's plays two characters in Drawn Together. Two of the
Oh,
main cast.
man, Tron Together.
Uh,
That's a show I haven't thought about in a while.
Yeah, it occasionally crosses my mind, and I go, God, that show was really messed up but
I
funny.
was.
Um, so anyway, moving on. Yeah, so Loki and Mobius are really kind of going and trying to find the Loki, this variant Loki. Mm. And in the process, there's a team that gets sent out to investigate a variance. Um, and one of basically the Loki is there and beats up the team and managed to capture one of them.
Sorry, my cat just decided to jump up on my lap.
Ah, okay. I assumed that the cat was there.
Kitty.
Hey, Chonk.
Hi, Kitty.
And Tim always gives me crap for my cat walking around in front of my camera.
Well, I like cats. So.
I like cats too. That's why I have 2 of them.
For those of you watching the stream, there's just going to be a floofy cat tail right there next to me for like several minutes.
It's like someone's like flicking a feather duster right near Tim's face.
We're going to get her going here.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So, yeah. So the Loki captures one of the Time Police and their little pruning grenades.
Yep.
That they have that we haven't talked about before, but I mean, basically, it's literally a grenade that resets the timeline.
Yeah.
So Loki continues to investigate, and basically, the long story short is finally figures out how this other Loki is avoiding them. So in the universe, there's these things called Nexus events. Basically, these immutable, unchangeable events that happen within the time. It causes a divergence of the timeline. It can cause a divergence of the timeline. But there's these events that can't be stopped. So
right, the apocalypse events. Yep.
Basically, they're apocalypse events. As an example, Pompeii, Mount Vesuvius exploding, which is the one they use in the movie. It doesn't matter what you do at the right before that event happens. It's going to be erased.
Yeah, everybody's going to die. Yep.
You can't stop that apocalypse. I mean, I guess you could theoretically alter, a positioning of a body that might have, revealed some detail, kind of like the dude from Pompeii that they found was in the middle of pleasuring himself when he was covered in ash.
Yeah, like what a way to go.
I mean, he died the way he lived.
But yeah, so they figured this out. Like Loki kind of has an inkling that maybe, because no matter what you do there, it won't show up on the TVA's radar because everybody that's there is going to die anyway. So you could literally show up, spout the secrets of the universe, and it would make no difference because everybody around you is going to die. So they go there, and Mobius is like, all right, we're not even supposed to be here. Let's just do something small. We'll see if it changes. We'll see if any Nexus energy starts kicking up, and we'll just get out of here. Well, Loki, in classic Loki fashion, shows up, frees a cart of goats, makes a huge scene out of everything, and, like, Mobius is checking his little device. He's like, I'm not seeing any. This isn't showing up as a variance. Huh. So they figure out that that's where, the Loki they're hunting is hiding is during some kind of apocalypse. Well, based on a few other clues that they had been given, they find out specifically which apocalypse. And it's effectively a area of, what was it, Florida, something.
Some East Coast city in the U.S. in like the year 2030 or something like that gets murked hard by a hurricane.
Everybody that's there involved in that particular apocalypse is going to die. So that Loki has been kind of hiding out there, jumping back to points in time during that apocalypse before the hurricane kills everybody. So it doesn't matter if they're there. Yep. And it's effectively in, let's call it what it is, a super Walmart, for lack of a better description. It was a Roxxon business venture, if I remember right. Which is like Marvel's like evil corporation that they use for everything.
Yeah, true.
But so they show up there, and they all kind of get separated and whatnot. Loki starts chasing somebody that the other Loki is apparently controlling. You come to find out that this other Loki has the ability to enchant people and kind of control their thoughts, control their actions, read their minds through their enchantment. So after, jumping from a few different people, we finally come face to face with the Loki that they're hunting, who's Lady Loki. Which was kind of like, everybody kind of knew it was going to happen because of the casting rumors, but we finally see her on screen, full costume, the whole 9 yards, and she refers to herself as Sylvie, Because she says, I am not Loki anymore. I am Sylvie. It is a name I've created for myself." Which Sylvie, in the comics anyway, was the second enchantress who, if I remember correctly, was actually given her powers by Loki. So there's still kind of a. I'm just throwing stuff off my desk. Don't mind me. So it's still they're kind of taking a, in classic MCU style, they're taking what readers are familiar with and kind of twisting it slightly so that you're not, getting exactly what you read, but you're still going to be pleasantly surprised at what they're giving you.
Yeah. So, to cap off the episode, Sylvie sets off a bunch of those pruning grenades.
Yeah, she does. The ones that she's been stealing, that's what she did, is she created effectively makeshift bombs.
Correct. So she set off these pruning grenades, which basically is causing a whole flood of Nexus events to happen within the timeline, and she escapes, and Loki follows her, much to Mobius's chagrin.
Yep. Because he's supposed to be keeping track of him.
Correct. So Loki bounces, and Mobius is stuck cleaning up what's left.
Yep. But Loki and Sylvie, they jump through a time portal back to the TVA. Because that's kind of Sylvie's whole thing is she wants to find the timekeepers and kill them because they've literally been hunting her entire life, ever since she was a child. And it's established she's been running for a long time. The Asgardians are very long-lived people, and she is still very much an Asgardian. She's just a variant of the Loki that we know. But
technically, she Asgardian because she's a Loki, and Loki's technically a frost giant.
As Asgardian, all the people of like that general realm, those realms, I should say, all are very long-lived.
Yeah.
But anyway, she's been hunted since she was a kid. She wants to just put an end to it. So she's trying to get to the timekeepers to kill them and put a stop to all this.
Yeah.
So you kind of get set up like what her motivation is. And Loki just wants to know, like, there's another Loki. I'm the best Loki. And he keeps trying to prove that, he's the original, even though he's technically not.
Yeah, technically he is probably the most similar to the closest to the main MCU Loki, because he's literally that Loki. He just happened to have gotten he just happened to be that Loki from an earlier point. Mm-hmm. So I mean he's missing some of the character development of Loki, but one of the things we didn't talk about though was that when Loki's captured originally by the TVA and Mobius is interviewing him, he plays some like he's basically got like a diskette of Loki, the MCU's Loki, entire life. So you can see his past and you can actually see his future. Mobius leaves the room and Loki starts looking at his future. He sees, Frigga, his mother, die. He sees the destruction of Asgard. He sees his bonding with Thor, and ultimately sees his death by Thanos' hands, which really kind of shakes him to his core. Because that basically says that, according to the sacred timeline, Loki is destined to die.
Yeah.
Like, there's no changing.
Destined to die ingloriously.
Correct. Because, Thanos snapped him like, a kid does to a dandelion.
Yeah.
Kind of like that scene from Evangelion.
it is like that scene from Ava.
Yeah,
it's exactly that.
Anyway, so so Loki follows Sylvie through the portal, through her invasion of the TVA, and as she's making her way to the Golden Elevator, which is where the timekeepers are. They live at the top of the elevator on their golden tower thing, I guess.
Who knows?
They never actually really explained where the elevator goes.
Right.
So
it's a Wonkavator. It goes wherever it wants.
Right. Exactly. So they make their way there. Long story short, he causes enough of a delay that the the TVA authorities can show up to try to stop them, and then right before they're both pruned,
Yeah.
they manage to grab one of the little teleport pads and
What do they call them? Temp pads or something like that?
temp pads, yeah,
Yep.
something like that. Probably like temporal pads or something.
Right, yeah.
Temp pad. Grabs a temp pad, and then they teleport away to an unknown destination.
Yep.
And actually, it's not any temp pad. It's Sylvie. It's Sylvie's temp pad, which you discover that she stole when she was a kid.
Right.
Because she has pre-programmed a bunch of apocalypse events in there, so that she can zip around the time or zip around the multiverse without being, or the timeline. I guess there's not a multiverse
Right.
at this point. Zip around the multiverse without being, or timeline without being caught.
Yep.
So they wind up on another planet that's getting ready to crash into its moon.
Yeah. Or the moon's crashing into it, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
And Sylvia at this point is immediately furious because she's like, this particular apocalypse, the entire planet is destroyed. No one survives at all.
Correct.
Yeah.
And their temp pad's battery is also dead,
Yes.
so they can't
have
open
no way
a door.
off. Yep.
Right. Convenient plot device.
Yep.
The temp pad just happens to die here.
Yeah.
What do you think about it? Like, what's the battery life on those things? Because Sylvie only used it to jump twice.
Well, we don't know how many times she used it beforehand or what battery level it was at.
Correct, but remember, she also disappears fairly quickly after that confrontation. Now, again, she could have been popping around, but they don't really go into any exposition about like her attacking other teams or things
Right.
like that. So my assumption is that she's at her little home base or whatever it is, and it's just, and probably got the temp pad. I mean, I would hope she would have had it plugged in, especially if
You would
she's
think.
like trying to escape. And I think they even show that it's like she has it plugged in at one point. Like it's like
I don't
sitting on
remember.
a stand or something. Maybe it doesn't have an IQ charger. It's not wireless.
Well, I mean, look at all the other. Apart from that, all their tech is 60s based. It has to be plugged into a generator.
True. So anyway, yeah, they wind up on this planet and they're trying to find a way to charge the temp pad. Which they have some interesting character development moments.
Yeah,
You
they
kind of
do,
get a little bit
absolutely.
more of more information on Sylvie. Sylvie, what interestingly enough, I do enjoy this factoid. She fights with more of a short sword dagger type thing as opposed to Loki's. It actually reminds me of like a glass dagger from Skyrim.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah, green blade, like the flowing edges type thing.
Oh, very much so.
It's actually more. It's not a kukri, more like a falchion.
Right.
Like a short falchion that's just green.
Yeah,
But
it
anyway,
looks cool.
yeah, it looks really cool. She fights with one of those as opposed to Loki, who typically fights, two-handed
Right, his
daggers.
little dagger, which I mean
Yeah.
is very skilled in.
Yes. Um. Yeah. So they go on a merry romp through the dying planet, trying to find something to help them charge the temp pad. And it's interesting seeing their dynamic. Sylvie's very direct in
Yeah.
her dynamic. She's the god or goddess, I guess, of mischief,
Mhm.
but she's very, she grew up by herself. She grew up having to escape the TVA, so she's very, very direct. At one point, she tries to kick in a door of a hut and um, demands that the tries to make a demand, and the person in the hut immediately shoots her with an air cannon,
Yep.
knocking her on her butt. Um,
That's one of my. This is
interestingly
one of my
enough,
favorite scenes.
yeah, interestingly enough, though, Loki tries his trickster magic, his glamour, you know, his ability to change his appearance and whatnot, and but does the wrong thing, says the wrong things, tries to mimic this woman's husband, and tries to be very sweet and caring, and she shoots him too because, according to her, he's never said anything that nice in his life. So
Yep. So you see both the Lokis, sitting there in the dirt on their asses, just. All right, let's go.
yeah. Anyway, so progressing that along, they find out that there's this ship that could potentially get them off planet called the Ark. Um, so they sneak aboard, sneak aboard a train where the the first Loki, uh, uh, causes a bit of a ruckus.
Well, and we should
Right.
point out that during that scene where they were trying to, effectively get that woman's power source that shot them, their attempts failed because they were trying it. It kind of sets up the theme of the show. They do their own thing, they fail. When they get to the train, Loki disguises himself as a guard and tries to get onto tries to get on the train, claiming that Sylvie is a prisoner that's supposed to, or not a prisoner, a diplomat or something.
Claims she's a prisoner.
Prisoner, okay,
She's
prisoner.
she's a prisoner
Yeah,
transfer because he's a guard and he's got like her arm behind her
That's
back
right,
or
yep.
whatever, like in handcuffs or something.
And at first, like, okay, yeah, no problem. We just need to see the transfer papers. And Loki's like, yes, the papers, which are a thing I have. And you see Sylvie real quick, right before this guard's getting ready to report to his superior that, hey, something fishy's going on here. You see her enchant him real quick. The superior turns, is there a problem? Oh, no, sir. I was just getting ready to let them on. Everything's good. So you see that when they work together, they're able to accomplish their goals, which kind of sets up how the series is progressing, that they are more powerful together. But
right.
Like you're saying, they get onto this train, and you get some very interesting factoids. Loki cannot ride on. He despises riding on trains backwards. Whereas Sylvie, because they go to sit at the table, and Sylvie just refuses to move because she says, "Look, I like having the entire room in my view. I don't like people being behind me." And Loki's like, okay, but if I sit over here, I'll be going backwards on the train. I don't do that. I can't ride trains backwards. Which is the thing, ironically, is the thing that a lot of people have. They can't ride trains backwards because it throws them off. So you get some interesting character fluff there. But they kind of start talking, and Sylvie is kind of opening up just because there's nothing else to do, but she's not really fully trusting him because she knows that he is her, she is him. She knows how she is, so she knows not to trust him herself. It gets weird. But she ends up, taking a small nap, falling asleep, and gets woken up to, this song and dance show that Loki's putting on, singing in Asgardian, which, if you read the subtitles, it says singing in Asgardian, but I think he's just speaking, singing Norwegian, I think. I don't remember, but Tom Hiddleston, very, very impressive singer, actually. But he's singing like he's regaling everybody in this train car with a drinking song, and you get a nice throwback to the I like it, another scene from Thor that Loki does the same thing. He enjoyed his drink, throws it down, gets another. But this ends up causing a bit of a scene. Because people realize, why is this guy who's saying he's a guard abandoning the prisoner he's supposed to watch and getting drunk? Something's not right here. So people go to the next train car. They get some of the other guards. They all know, okay, something's up, and you get a pretty cool fight scene actually.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You get to really kind of see Sylvie and Loki both kind of work their magic, even though it's sometimes literally working their magic. Which they're fun fight scene, interesting dynamic between the two of them. Ultimately, Loki winds up getting yeeted out of a window.
Yeah, because he is still because he's drunk. What's funny is before the fight started, Sylvie asked him if he's drunk. He said, "No, I'm not drunk. I'm just full." Full in. And I apologize, I don't remember what language Loki was singing or speaking in. Full in that language is the word for drunk.
Yeah.
So, he's like, are you drunk? No, I'm just drunk. But he gets yeeted out the window because he is still inebriated. Sylvie ends up following suit. They get off the train, and they're like, all right, we're going to have to hoof it from here. But look, you need to give me the temp pad.
One of the things that we didn't cover was why Sylvie followed him, which is because when they arrived on the planet, they had a fight over the temp pad, and Loki glamored it away, like he hid it away. And Sylvie doesn't have, and this is again a interesting dynamic of the variants. The different Lokis sometimes have different types of powers.
Yep.
Sylvie can't glamour anything; she can't conjure anything, but she can enchant.
Which is something that our Loki can't do.
Correct.
Yep.
So Loki hid the temp pad from Sylvie, basically
Yes.
forcing her to have to follow along. So anyway, back to the train. They get yeeted out the window. Come to find out, Loki apparently glambered it into his back pocket or something
Yeah.
and landed on it and broke the temp pad.
Yep. Landed right on it.
So yeah, now they have to find a way off of the dying planet, and they have 8 hours.
I'll say it's a very small amount of time to figure out how to get off a planet that historically is known no one got off of.
Yeah.
So they decide to make their way to the city where the ship is, and they're like, all right, we're going to make sure that this ship gets off the planet. We're going to make sure that it successfully gets off the planet, and we make it out. That's their glorious plan.
That is their glorious plan, but as we know with all Lokis, their plans never come to fruition.
They are destined to fail.
They are destined to fail. So they fight through the city. The city is in turmoil as people are trying to rush to the Ark and, get into the Ark in order to escape the planet. A meteor smashes right through the middle of the Ark and destroys it.
Yeah, it does.
Like in spectacular fashion. Goes up like a road flare.
Yeah.
With all of the rich people on it. So
Yep.
maybe there's a metaphor there, but
Rich people shouldn't go to space.
Correct.
Let's just leave it at that.
Correct. Anyway, so that leaves the Loki and Sylvie kind of stuck.
Yep.
Meanwhile, while all this, so they kind of piss off to do their own thing to basically die in this apocalypse. Meanwhile, Mobius is still trying to find Loki, still tracking Loki, and as Loki and Sylvie are kind of talking and reminiscing a little bit and kind of revealing more about their past and about themselves.
Bonding more than anything, yeah.
Bonding more than anything. It creates another Nexus event, which causes...
Which shouldn't happen in an apocalypse, mind you.
Correct. So,
Well, yes, there was a causes
correct, yes. So, it causes another Nexus event, which spikes in the TVA and causes Mobius to see it. And so, at the last possible moment, he opens some time doors and teleports them out. But, of course, this gets them captured by the TVA.
Again.
So, they're back at the TVA. One key detail that we hadn't shared at this point is that Sylvie reveals to Loki that everyone in the TVA is actually just a variant.
Yes.
They're not created by the timekeepers to be the time police. They are
which is what they all think, and that's what everybody at the TVA knows is, we were created by the timekeepers. We were born here. We'll live out our lives here, however long they may be, because time works differently. They all think that they were created by the TVA. They're all, in fact, variants that somehow were brainwashed into believing that they were created to be TVA agents. So it's literally their only purpose in life.
Yep. So Loki and Sylvie make it back. Mobius, goes to interrogate Loki. And because Loki's being recalcitrant and not providing information, they stick him in a... He's being Loki. They stick him in a time loop, which I think is one of the more funny, amusing scenes, which basically the time loop that Loki is in is he is dropped onto a balcony in Asgard, and Sif comes out from around the hallway and basically starts berating him because in this time loop, Loki has cut her hair.
Which is actually a story from actual Norse mythology of Loki cutting Lady Sif's hair, which ironically is the event in Norse mythology anyway, is ironically the event that led to Thor getting Mjolnir. So Norse history, look it up. It's very fascinating, actually. Loki's the mother of a horse. Anyway,
and the mother of Hela.
Yes. Yep.
Or sorry, you said Loki's the mother of a horse, and then I
Yes. No,
piggybacked off. But
that's
yeah,
correct. Loki is the mother of a horse. You heard me right.
yes. Well, technically, Loki is also the progenitor of Hela
Let's see.
and
Hela, Fenrir,
Jormungand.
Jormungandr,
Yeah,
a lot of stuff. Loki. Loki has a lot of freaky deaky kids. But back
yeah,
to the MCU Loki though. He's stuck in a time loop that Sif is berating him for cutting her hair while she slept, and punches him a bunch of times, knees him in the crotch, and then walks off. And Loki's like, "Oh God, I remember this." And then Sif comes out again and plays through the same thing, and like you were just, and that scene just keeps replaying over and over and over. It's a time loop prison, and it just keeps happening. That same event over and over. Nothing he can say or do will change it. It will change its ultimate outcome of her beating the crap out of him, kneeing him in the crotch, and leaving. Because no matter how he even minutely changes it, it just starts back over again.
yep. But before he gets dumped in the prison, he does tell Mobius that he is a variant, and of course, Mobius just chalks it up to
Oh, you're
Loki
just being
lying to him
Loki.
again. Yeah. But there's subtle things that are said and done and happen around Mobius after that really kind of lead him to question and think about it.
Yeah,
And
question everything.
he goes and speaks to his judge friend. They're good friends, and he tries to get some information out of her. Asks to speak to Sylvie. She won't let him. Asks about one of the TVA agents that Sylvie had captured, saying that she's been erased or pruned at this point because she was just too crazy.
Right?
Um,
She died is what the judge tells him originally.
yeah. Um, so there's a conversation, but it makes Mobius suspicious. So
Yeah,
while
it does.
the judge is facing the other direction, he swaps his temp pad with hers, which because she's a judge, he has more access to things than he
Yep.
does. So then, he excuses himself and then starts looking up things within his temp pad or within this temp pad and makes a few discoveries about the TVA.
Yeah, he does.
So he rescues Loki from the time prison and they leave. But they get 10 steps out of the time
Yeah.
prison when they're stopped by the judge.
Yep.
And sadly, at this point, Mobius is pruned.
Which was a big shocker that would happen. Because I mean, he had been. I mean, while he is effectively going against what the TVA wants him to do, yeah, it's still like he was such a central character to everything.
Yeah. So he's pruned, and then they go to arrest Loki and um arrest him again.
Again, yeah,
Right. But one of the other TVA agents, B-15, which we haven't talked about before,
yeah.
she's this kind of bigger, burly, almost like shock trooper type.
I mean, yeah, she's the she's gonna knock you on your ass and you're gonna feel it, cop.
Yeah. Um, Sylvie had previously enchanted her when they were in the grocery store. Uh, the way Sylvie's enchantment works is that she can't manifest or she can't create memories. All she can do is take the memories that are there and use them to basically dominate your will.
Yeah, effectively,
Well,
she takes your memory and uses that as the set for a movie that she's making in your head.
yeah.
Yep.
Well, she did this to B-15, which really unnerves her because she sees a life that she had
Yep, which she's not
before.
supposed to have.
Right. So B-15 goes and talks to Sylvie and basically takes her back to the apocalypse and says, "Show me those memories again. I don't know what I saw, but I want you to. If you can do it, show it to me again." And that's when she, discovers, she's a variant. Um, so anyway, they come back and there's a bit of a scuffle, but Sylvie and Loki are captured
Yep. Again.
um, again, and the judge, says, "All right, we're taking you to your sentencing, which is in front of the timekeepers." So
Yeah.
they take them up to the golden elevator, and yet we actually get to see the timekeepers, who are
Yeah.
kind of like weird lizard people type things.
Yeah, I'm not sure, like when they show the timekeepers in like any of the TVA training videos or whatnot, they looked kind of like Kree at first, but not quite. But yeah, I mean they're weird lizard people things.
Yeah. One of them has a mustache.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that like design wise, I think that one's my favorite.
I do too.
But they take them in front of the TVA and whatnot, and another scuffle happens, and Sylvie ends up decapitating one of the timekeepers, whose head rolls to the ground, and we realize it's a robot. It's a robot.
Yep.
And the other
It's
timekeepers, you hear them kind of chuckling, and then they power down very much like a broken ride at Disneyland. And it's like, well, what does this mean? If the TVA is not real, what is this? And Loki and Sylvie are having this moment where they're like, no, we're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to find this out. And then Loki gets pruned. Which was an even bigger shock than Mobius getting pruned. Let me tell you, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I saw that and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? They're killing off Loki. Because at this point, we still are under the assumption that pruning means that they are erased from time. There's no coming back from that. There's no way to make a variant of somebody, once they're pruned, that's it.
Yep.
But the
episode ends with Sylvie basically taking the judge hostage.
Yep.
And demanding that she tell her, everything. And then Loki waking up in a field somewhere, surrounded by 4 other Lokis.
Yep.
And I'm not talking Tom Hiddleston Lokis. Yeah. We're talking Black Loki, Old Man Loki,
Kid Loki,
and
our favorite
Loki, and Croco Loki,
Gator Loki,
Gator Loki.
Yep. Which the great thing about them is, with the exception of, I think they call him Boastful Loki, which is the one who has what looks like a variant of Mjolnir.
Yes.
And technically Gator Loki. So, okay, 2 of them, since there's 4. But Kid Loki is canon to the comics and looks almost exactly how Kid Loki did. Old Loki is Loki's, like, traditional, like, 60s comic outfit. That garish, bright green and yellow thing.
Yeah, with the paper mache horns.
Yeah. But you see that, and then the episode draws to a close. Episode after that opens up, and Loki is effectively told that when something is pruned, there's no way to erase that matter. It gets sent to this place, which what did they call that again?
It's the end of time.
The
void. No, sorry, the void.
The void. Yep. Where effectively,
it's the void. So
yeah,
it's a place. It's a place at the end of time, and basically, what the reason is at the end of time is because there is this cloud demon horse creature that eats, that eats the matter. I use I'm going to use an old movie reference here. What it kind of reminded me of. Do you remember the Langoliers? Stephen King's Langoliers?
Never saw it, actually.
Okay. So the Langoliers it has something similar. The Langoliers are these creatures that they look like basically giant floating meatballs with saw blade teeth.
Okay.
But they eat time.
Right.
Basically, like, once an event happens, they eat what's left over after that event. So like they preserve, they allow time to keep moving, and make sure there's not an overabundance of, I guess, matter in the universe. Anyway.
Okay. Interesting.
So
that's effectively what Alioth does, is something sent there, and they I believe it was old Loki made the analogy that, all right, if you want to know where we are, we're in a shark tank, and that's the shark.
Yep.
And that's effectively what it is. The Lokis are, that's their whole thing, is they've managed to survive here because they're They're cunning. That's what they do, which is kind of a parallel to what Loki and Sylvie have been saying the whole time. Is we're Lokis, we're destined to fail. This Loki's like, no, we're Lokis, we're destined to live. So it's kind of changing the thematic feel of the show, and each one of the Lokis is another variant, and they go back to their safe house, for lack of a better description, and they're all talking and whatnot, and all the Lokis had why were they a variant? Old Loki, his life followed exactly how it should have up until the moment that Thanos killed him. That Loki summoned a delusion so real that Thanos didn't know he was strangling an illusion, and those around him didn't know that, and he hid under some garbage, and then after everything happened, he just went off to a planet and just hid for, centuries. I mean, again, we stated that the people of the Asgardian realms are very long-lived. So to see Loki looking that much older, it was a very long time, and he was unbothered for all of those centuries until he finally missed his brother enough, and the second he went to step foot off the planet, the TVA showed up and arrested him.
What I loved about that particular scene is the fact that he mentions that he missed Thor. Yeah. Like because that showcases that there really was a bond between Thor and Loki, especially towards Infinity War and Endgame. They really did become like brothers.
Yeah, exactly. It was a beautiful transition from enemies to back to how they should be. They were brothers. But then Kid Loki, he's sitting here watching all this. I'm like, well, what about you? What was your Nexus event thing? Oh, I killed Thor. And he just says it nonchalant like that, while he's drinking an Ecto Cooler, by the way.
Yes,
so,
yes.
Which, like, I'm obviously, admittedly, a Ghostbuster fan. People were talking about that. Oh, there's an Ecto Cooler that showed up here. My question was, wait a second. If the Ecto Cooler's here, that means it was evolved in some kind of Nexus event. And one of my friends jokingly said, yeah, the Nexus event was they actually brought it back for the new movie in that timeline, and that's not going to happen. Like, oh, you make me sad on two levels. But there's...
You have to say, Alligator Loki's Nexus event was apparently eating the wrong neighbor's cat.
Yes, which... Boastful Loki, I don't for the life of me remember what his Nexus event was.
I don't remember him saying what his...
I say, neither do I. I don't remember if he said it and I just forgot it, or if he just legitimately didn't. But speaking of Boastful Loki, we come to find out that he sold them all out.
To other Lokis.
To a fifth Loki, who is also Tom Hiddleston, but is the self-proclaimed, king of these lands. And that was the kind of deal, is that Boastful Loki sold them out in exchange for power. Well, he ends up, in classic Loki fashion, Loki double-crossed Loki, who then proceeded to screw over Loki, and fight Loki, who hit Loki. There's a lot of Lokis in this scene.
Yes, but Alligator Loki also bites off King Loki's hand.
Yep.
And he screams like a little girl, which was hilarious to me.
That was the best part of that whole scene. Ah! It was very, very un-Loki-like.
Yes, just like squeal, like, just screeches like an 8-year-old.
Yep. But through all this fighting going on, classic Loki, old man Loki, conjures illusions, and our Loki and Kid Loki manage to escape, away from the fight.
With Gator Loki.
With Gator Loki.
Forget Gator.
Yes,
we can't forget Gator Loki.
Yeah, with Gator Loki. And they kind of go off. Well, while all this is happening, Sylvie is back at the TVA. She's trying to get, the judge to talk and reveal some information. The judge is stalling for time and has secretly, called reinforcements in. They surround Sylvie, who's, there's no way she's going to be able to fight all of them off. She's got one of the pruning rods, and she prunes herself.
Yep. Which doesn't have as much gravitas as it did, back when Mobius and Loki were pruned, because we now know that there exists this land beyond that the sky demon horse is
The Sky
floating.
Demon Horse.
Anyway, so they go to jumping back. Sylvie wakes up in the void and starts running, and then a pulls up, and it's Mobius.
Yep.
Like Mobius has survived. Like he is there, and he picks her up. And they kind of have a bit of a bonding moment, a bit of an understanding, they understanding moment of each other. And
Now, I will say one thing that that we should mention. When Sylvie does wake up, and she's looking around trying to figure out where she is, and Eliath starts coming her way. As she's running, she actually makes contact with it, and for a second, because of her enchanting magic, is able to kind of see into the creature's mind, and sees that, there is something else beyond this world, and that's where they need to go. She's not sure what or where it is, but she knows that's where they need to go. So she kind of has this inkling that there's something more going on here. But Mobius, like Ian said, did pick her up. I feel that was a missed opportunity for while he was driving to say "KA-CHOW," but
yeah,
so they end up meeting up with Loki and Gator Loki.
Yep. And that's when they hatch the plan to enchant the sky demon horse.
I like how that's what you're gonna forever call it.
Yes, I am going to forever call it the sky demon horse. So they make the plan. The other Lokis decide, all right, you go ahead and try that. We're not gonna help.
We wish you the best of luck. We hope you are successful in your ventures, but we're gonna go over there.
Right. So Loki gives the temp pad to Mobius, who goes back to the TVA. And he and Sylvie take on the Sky Demon Horse. So it's at this point where the Sky Demon Horse is going to attack them that Old Man Loki reappears and conjures Asgard.
Yeah.
Like
down
massive,
to the individual stones on the street.
Yes. Asgard, because that is how powerful his glamours are. He is the acting, I want to say, of that the actor that was playing that Loki, fantastic. Had such energy and just emotion in that character, and really does this as kind of an act of sacrifice. He kind of knows what's going to happen.
Right.
And he is eaten by the Sky Demon Horse eventually as it realizes that the glamour isn't real.
Yep, and so the distraction is gone.
Right.
But that kind of, for Loki and Sylvie, kind of gives them the inclination that, especially our Loki, is a lot stronger than what he realizes, because that Old Man Loki, classic Loki, was that Loki farther along in his own timeline. Everything was perfect. Everything followed the MCU perfectly in classic Loki's timeline, up until he didn't die at the hands of Thanos. So they kind of join hands as Sylvie has she's got a grasp on Eliath, the Sky Demon Horse, and is trying to enchant him. His mind is fighting it off, and then Loki teams up with her, and together they're able to kind of channel more magic, and she does it. The two of them, I should say, they do it. They enchant Eliath.
Yep. I will say before we move on, though, the void in and of itself, I thought was fantastic because of all the callbacks to
absolutely
different things.
The Thanos copter.
Yes, the Thanos copter. I
laughed so
hilarious.
hard at that.
Yes, I thought that was hilarious. I mean, did you also notice the crap? What was his name?
Yellow Jacket.
Yeah, well, yeah, there was Yellow Jacket's helmet that was there.
Giant, mind you, which he never was giant in the Ant-Man film. So that was probably why he was a variant.
Correct. He was, there's that. There was also Ronan's ship, the Dark Sucker.
Mm-hmm. Yep, there was
you saw that.
A Living Tribunal statue in there as well.
Yeah.
Some people said they spotted an X-Wing, but it's the one shot that it appears in, or not an X-Wing, a TIE Fighter, I think it was. Or no, it might have been an X-Wing. And some ship from Star Wars. But the angle it's at, the lighting and everything, it's it might be a cool kind of nod since Disney owns Marvel and Star Wars, but it's really it's one of those things. If you look at it and you're looking for that ship, you'll see it. But I don't buy it personally. It would have been a nice little fun nod because then that means that
Yeah.
Star Wars is a timeline in the MCU. But I don't buy it personally. But yeah, there were a bunch of nice little throwbacks. Like we had mentioned, the Thanos copter, which was a thing that actually happened in the comics. If you're not familiar with the Thanos copter, that wasn't just a random helicopter that said Thanos on it in Loki. That's a thing. Google it, please. You will not be disappointed.
And it's at this time as well that I can laugh, that we can kind of laugh at this because it's Marvel taking pot shots at themselves.
Yeah.
And some of their own weirdness. Like they did it in Captain America, in the original Captain America movie, talking about, his goofy old suit and, making fun of like some of his old designs and things like that. So, they've had fun. They've had fun making fun of themselves, and
Right.
I'm really looking forward to when they can bring in Deadpool
Oh
to
yeah.
make fun to severely lampoon
Dude, yeah.
Severely lampoon Disney and
Themselves.
Marvel and yeah. I mean, Marvel or Deadpool already made fun of Disney a little bit.
Well, I mean,
Um,
technically, Deadpool is already MCU canon because of that little teaser trailer they did sitting down with Korg.
yeah,
I mean, technically, Deadpool's already canon. He just hasn't done anything beyond laughed at a movie that he and Taika Waititi, who voices Korg, are in together. Free Guy,
yeah,
which apparently is very good, and they're already talking about a sequel.
yeah. I've heard that it had exceptional reviews, which is to me great because it's such an off the wall like weird premise type thing,
Right?
but it feels like a classic Ryan Reynolds now movie.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
just goofy.
Right?
Like
Goofy and
he
fourth wall breaking.
Yeah, exactly. Like he just has a lot of fun with those kind of characters these
Oh yeah.
days. But anyway, so they've enchanted Eliath. Eliath reveals the place beyond time. They refer to it's the Citadel is what
Yep.
it's called. So they make their way to the Citadel where
Mhm.
they get inside and they're met by Miss Minutes, who
Who
is
gives them the most murderous look ever, by the way. Like, have you seen the screen cap of her just all, like,
yeah.
wide eyed? Like, she's going to kill you, and you're going to not be able to do anything about it.
Yeah. So they interact with Miss Minutes, who tells them about the one beyond time, or
He who
the one that
remains.
he who or, the one that shall remain, or something like that. He who shall remain. Um, who is basically the architect of the sacred timeline, and she
He
kind of
is
gives
the actual timekeeper.
right. She gives them a little bit of information, and kind of sends them on her way, and then they meet him, and he's just this
Dude.
kind of jovial dude that eating an
Like,
apple and
yeah,
having
just
fun.
doesn't give off the vibe at all of bad guy. He's just a dude, and he goes on to explain that the reason that he's trying to keep the timeline a certain way is, eons ago, he
Well,
just
technically, yes and no, because
yeah,
he's from
time is weird.
Earth. He's from Earth in the 31st century.
Yes. So aeons ago to him, and the future for us. It's with time and time travel gets really weird.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Basically, he discovered parallel universes, parallel time universes, or the multiverse. He discovered the multiverse in his timeline, and
yep.
he discovered how to tap into it. And so then he kept making contact with himself and sharing technology and things like that. But as everybody knows, with like alternate versions of ourselves, in an alternate reality, I have a flowing mane of hair, and I look like, I don't know, Arnold Schwarzenegger or something. Um, that's the whole point of the variance. Variance in an alternate timeline. Several of him, because we don't know. It's a multiverse. We don't. There's no limit to
Yeah.
the number of these universes. Um, a version of him basically like started the multiverse war and just waged war on all of these different multiverses. So this particular He Who Shall Remain, because they don't actually name him.
Nope, they don't actually.
This particular He Who Shall Remain, basically like squashed all of those other timelines and created the TVA to stop himself from starting the multiverse war. And now he refers to himself as, like the benevolent dictator, like the guy he's got to make the hard choices for the right reasons. It's the ends justifies the means type thing.
So I mean, which really sets him up, at least this particular version of this character, which we'll get into who this character is, but that sets up this particular version of this character as, yeah, I mean, it's he's keeping our universe from getting destroyed. So I mean, he's not really a bad guy. He's trying to just preserve the life and history that he knows, which to us is the only one we know. So I mean, he's not really a bad guy.
Yeah, he's not a
villain. Yeah,
he's not a villain. He's a bad guy, but he's not, to quote, Wreck-It Ralph, he's a bad guy, but he's not a bad guy.
Exactly, yeah.
Ralph, just because you are a bad guy does not mean you are a bad guy.
The words of wisdom from Zangief.
Yes.
Of all people.
Also a Disney property. All the movie is a Disney owned, so Wreck-It Ralph is Disney owned. Anyway, so kind of really makes his case, and he says that this is what Tim and I were talking about at the start of this episode, is that he has created everything, like he has manipulated everything up until this point. So everything that has happened, he has actually crafted that.
Yeah.
He's made sure
it was
that
supposed to happen that way.
Correct. So Sylvie and Loki showing up to the Citadel, he
planned that.
Like, yeah, he planned it.
They were, everything that we see in the Loki series, everything we've seen in the MCU was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
So they get there, and like he's explaining all this to them, and he says, "So I want to offer a proposition to you two. I've done this for far too long. You guys have an option. You can either kill me and unleash the horror of the multiverse, or why don't you guys run it? I mean, you've come this far. You've got the chance to finally live out your glorious purpose and be the one who literally controls everything and preserves the multiversal order, keeps these other timelines from happening. Everything goes on as it should. The TVA still has purpose, and you have say in literally existence itself." Which is kind of a tempting offer. I mean,
especially for a Loki.
Yeah, I mean, giving a Loki who, well, even like speaking to our Loki, who knows that his ultimate fate is to die at the hands of Thanos, being able to give him control over everything beyond that. Because this is still the Loki who he has seen his character development that we saw in the MCU, but hasn't lived it. It's not there. Not to sound cheesy, it's not there in his heart. It's there in his head.
Yeah.
So this is still very much the conquering. Just got done. To him a day or two ago, fighting the Avengers of New York Loki.
Yeah. So at one point we do hit a point where we cross what the He Who Shall Remain calls the threshold. Basically, it's the point of time that
he hasn't
written. So he's planned everything. He knew everything. He knew what they would say. He knew their movements, everything up until that point. Once they cross the threshold, which is the decision point of what they are going to do, he doesn't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, he doesn't know if they're going to take the offer. He doesn't know if they're going to kill him. He doesn't know if they're just going to walk away and he's going to keep doing it. He doesn't know. And like you see, it's really interesting when you see that scene happen, because you see his whole demeanor change, because for the first time in he can't remember how long, he doesn't know what's going to happen. It's all fresh time for him, which is almost seems like a bit of a relief, but also a bit of anxiety at the same time, because he doesn't have that control anymore. But he's glad, but it makes him nervous.
Yep. So at this point, there's a decision to be made. Sylvie's decision is to kill him.
Yeah.
She has spent her entire life trying to find the head of the TVA and behead them.
Yeah.
And Loki stops her.
Yeah.
Because he goes, well, wait, if killing him is going to unravel the universe, maybe we should really stop and think about this. Like, this isn't, like, it can't be we can't just do this for revenge. Like, we
Yeah.
have to really think about what it is that we're going to do.
Well,
So there's
he makes a really good point. He said, something along the lines of, me, I'm a liar, I'm the best liar out there. I can spot a liar. I don't think he's lying. But I mean, Sylvie at this point, like Ian said, is ultimately blinded by revenge. So she doesn't stop to think about it, and they get into a pretty good fight, actually.
Yeah, pretty epic scuffle.
Yeah.
Which culminates in Loki basically throwing down his blade and saying, "Look, you can kill me, but if this is really what you want to," and they have a moment, and he says, "Look, all I want is just for you to be happy." And it's at this point that Sylvie shows that she's really a Loki and betrays him and shoves him through a time door.
Yep.
Back to the TVA, and then she proceeds to kill he who shall remain. And he seems ambivalent about the whole thing, really. He's just like, okay, I'll be resurrection. He claims resurrection exists and says, I'll see you soon.
Yeah.
To Sylvie. And at this point, basically the timeline unravels. Like,
yes, and in a very visually spectacular way, actually.
yeah. Yeah, it's kind of imagine, like looking at ice crystals form in a magnifying glass, just how they kind of like all splinter out and,
Yep.
and everything else. So, yeah, so the timeline is unraveled, and
yeah, it is.
And Loki, we'll save some of the spoilers and everything else for you guys to to think about yourself. But Loki goes to find Mobius and try to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
And that's really the end of the series. Well, the season, I should say.
Yes, because they do get a season
confirmed.
2.
They have been confirmed for season 2.
Yep.
So, we've covered kind of every episode, and there's some of the fun things and the points and whatnot. And Tim alluded to this there earlier. Who is he who shall remain?
Yes, it's when anybody that keeps up with Marvel casting, this was no surprise. My only, and I'll get back to who he is, but my only complaint with the Loki series is it was kind of set up that we knew this would be who was behind it, since this character had been cast, it had been made public knowledge who was playing this character. He who shall remain is a variant of Kang the Conqueror, who himself is a variant of himself. If you're kind of tying what Loki explains back to the comics, he has been multiple different people all throughout time. Effectively, he is a time conqueror. That's what he does. He conquers throughout time.
Yep.
Very technologically
and he's actually
advanced.
he is if I remember correctly, he's a descendant of Jean Grey and Cyclops.
Well, Kang, we could do a whole episode on Kang. Kang is confusing. That is correct, but he is also a descendant of Reed Richards, but he is also young Tony Stark. Kang is an interesting character. Trying to explain Kang is
he who Kang in the Loki verse even references himself in that way.
Yeah.
He's describing himself. Some people say I'm this. Some people would say I'm a conqueror.
Right.
Very blatantly makes reference. For anybody that doesn't know of King the Conqueror, doesn't follow the Marvel comics, it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense until later on in the MCU, when I'm sure he'll come back.
Well, he's going to be for sure in Ant-Man, I know, and what did they just say he was going to be in? Something else, I don't remember. But he was. That's where the casting of him got made public, was that he was going to be the main villain in the next Ant-Man film, Ant-Man Quantumania. Which, I mean, the quantum realm, as we've seen in the MCU, was very critical to time travel. So the next Ant-Man film is going to delve even farther into the quantum realm and everything about it. And I know a lot of people were like, oh, well, that sucks. He's going to get killed off in the Ant-Man movie, because Marvel does kind of have a track record with their villains. Yeah, here's the thing. You can kill off Kang in one timeline. There's 20 other versions of him running around at any given point. It doesn't matter if you kill one Kang. And that's kind of Kang's whole thing in the comics is, you can kill me. I'm already 20 years in the future planning how I'm going to get revenge on you guys. A version of me is, like I said, 20 years in the future from 500 years in the past. So he's a time traveler. It's what he does. Killing him isn't going to mean anything.
Yep, pretty much.
Especially with all the variants of him.
Yeah. So it's interesting, and he's going to be in Ant-Man, and I've not really followed much of this phase of the MCU, but it wouldn't surprise me if he's going to play a much bigger role in this phase of the MCU. Simply because of the...
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, if you look at the lineups and the movies and things like that they have going for them, they're doing another season of Loki. They alluded to, Wanda is now the Scarlet Witch,
yep,
who has multi-dimensional powers.
Yeah, she does.
The next Doctor Strange movie is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Yep, they're dealing with that. Spider-Man No Way Home is heavily implied, even though we still don't have a trailer for it, Marvel. Sorry. Is heavily implied to be a multiversal thing, because Doctor Strange is in that. So I mean, it's the multiverse and time travel and all that it's already here in the MCU. The thing I like about it is that opens up so many, pardon the pun, infinite possibilities, including Marvel's newest franchise to pop up after Loki, which is What If, which Marvel has stated that everything you see in What If, because the multiverse is in full effect, is technically canon, even if it doesn't happen in our timeline. It's happening somewhere in a multiverse.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, so there's infinite possibilities here.
Absolutely.
We could wind up with the multiverse version of Thanos being one of the Avengers, which actually is a thing that happened.
Yeah, it's a thing that happened in the main line.
Yes. So but it not only opens up the possibilities for all these other things, but we can see the X-Men and mutants coming into it. We have the Eternals that are coming out here soon. I believe they have confirmed that they're doing a Fantastic Four movie.
They confirmed that at a press conference, where at the end of it, like, it shows all, like, the Marvel movies that have come, all the stuff that had been announced, like little snippets of it, and then at the very end of the video, you see the classic circle with a 4 appear in it, and confirming that, guys, we are working on it. It's going to be a while. Which, honestly, Marvel needs to take their time on Fantastic Four, because, what do they say? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. There's no option for a third one.
Well, there was a third one. Remember? Because there was the original Fantastic Four. There was the early 2000s Fantastic... Yes. No, I'm sorry. There was the early 2000s Fantastic Four. Then they had Rise of the Silver Surfer.
Which I consider those part of the same thing.
Well, they had an opportunity to fix a universe. They had an opportunity to make it good.
They didn't.
And they didn't. So then they had the reboot, which was just awful.
I watched it just to see how bad it was. If you don't watch it as a Fantastic Four film, it's not bad. It's, random sci-fi fare. But the fact that it is a Fantastic Four film is what ruined it, because it was not the Fantastic Four. Like, I have no issues with the casting. I think Michael B. Jordan is a phenomenal actor. I mean, look at what he did in Black Panther.
Yeah.
Look at what he's done in Creed. I mean, he's an amazing actor. The casting isn't what I had an issue with. It was the content of the movie. Again, had it not been had it just been like Space Voyagers or some random sci-fi movie, I would have enjoyed it. It was a good B movie. But it was certainly not the caliber we expect of Marvel's first family. They should not have been treated like that. But, like Ian said, with the multiverse opening up, I firmly believe that's how we're going to get, the X-Men and mutants into the MCU. That's how we're going to get the Fantastic Four. That's how we're going to get Deadpool. Probably not all at once. I mean, it'd be nice if we got all that at once, but
yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting because, like, obviously with the multiverse and whatnot, there's all of these fan castings going on, and people want to see their their fan cast person. I actually saw a really cool rendition of Daniel Radcliffe as a young Wolverine.
I did
that I
as
thought
well,
was really
actually.
cool.
Yeah,
And
I could see him doing that, because especially with some of the stuff he's done lately, he has more than proven that he's not just Harry Potter.
yeah, well, I mean, if you taking kind of a non sequitur here, but if you look at, I mean, look at some of the castings that are. When we talked about this at the start of the show, some of the castings decisions out there for characters, like I don't know, Batfleck. I liked Ben Affleck
I
as
did
Batman.
too.
I
Absolutely.
thought he did a really good job. The movies he was in were terrible.
Well, because he was a good Batman and a good Bruce Wayne, which honestly only Adam West, in my opinion, has been able to pull off Bruce and Bats. And that was the 60s Batman, which is admittedly super campy. But Ben Affleck pulled off a good Bruce and a good Batman.
Yeah. He did really well. Henry Cavill's casting as Superman, was kind of
like everybody, like when they announced that, everybody's like, "Really, you're casting this guy? Look at what he's done." And people have unanimously said that as far as Superman goes, he is a great Superman. Again, the movies have been questionable, but he is Superman.
Yeah, and then even we haven't seen him yet, but even casting Robert Pattinson as the next Batman was, people were like, the kid from Twilight. Don't hold Twilight.
Watch some of his independent stuff. Yeah, watch some of his independent movies. He is a phenomenal actor.
Absolutely. Do not hold the Twilight movies against him, because that's how most people were introduced to him. Everybody gets cast in crap movies at some point or another. Like, not everyone gets to, start off being an immediate Oscar winner.
Let's see here. Chris Evans, not another teen movie. Ryan Reynolds in Green Lantern. Sorry, I had to mention it. Michael B. Jordan as Johnny Storm, later made as Killmonger.
Yeah.
People can be cast in bad movies. That doesn't mean that they're a bad actor.
Yeah, exactly.
There, I said it.
Yeah, they've everybody has had everybody has had that movie that they regret.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, George Clooney regretted doing Batman. He said.
You mean bat nipples?
Yeah. He said something, I'm going to paraphrase, along the lines of, somebody said, "Do you regret doing that movie?" And he said, "No, because that movie is a constant reminder to me, don't just do this for the money." And there was a lot of it, but don't just do it for the money.
Well, I mean, we want to throw back to something else. I mean, look at the Super Mario Brothers movie. Dennis Hopper was in it, and he's,
Yep, I know what story you're going to tell.
He's known for hating that movie and whatnot. His son asked him one time, "It's like, Dad, why did you agree to do that movie?" And Dennis Hopper's response was basically, "Well, son, you needed a new pair of shoes."
Yeah.
Which is, sometimes you just have to take that role for the paycheck.
Yeah.
Clooney was big enough when Batman came out that he could have turned it down.
Yeah.
And been fine. Some of those actors don't have that luxury.
Yep.
But
exactly.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So I think we've had a bit of an extra long episode, which is typically how our review episodes go.
It really is.
So we finished up, Loki. It's been a fantastic series. I greatly have greatly enjoyed it.
Oh yeah.
I'm looking forward to where the MCU goes next. Because besides What If, they really don't have.
I was gonna say Shang-Chi is their next thing, which
what I was going for is they don't really have any other Disney Plus TV shows, with the exception of the next season of Loki. But
I know that they had that like Armor Wars for the Iron Man side of stuff, because they announced Riri Williams. I will never be able to say her name right the first time. Ironheart, as she's better known in the comics, will actually be making her debut not in the Armor Wars series or her own standalone series, but in Black Panther 2. So I mean, like they've got other stuff. Like they have She-Hulk in the pipeline. They've got Armor Wars, Ironheart in the pipeline. But those are all things that they haven't, to my knowledge, they haven't announced any hard release dates for any of those. And let's call it how it is. It's getting to be the tail end of 2021 already, which is hard to believe.
Well, so for us, the MCU is probably going to be a little dry for a little while. I mean, they just released Black Widow, which was a fantastic movie.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Shang-Chi is coming out.
Eternals is coming out. Spider-Man's
coming out. Spider-Man will be out later this year. So they're going to have some stuff in the lineup. I think we're probably going to have to turn our attention back to the Star Wars side of things towards the end of the year, where we're going to see the Book of Boba Fett come out. And then we're going to, then we'll have Mandalorian season 3 next year, and then we're going to have some of the other shows. The Ahsoka show is filming right now, I believe.
Show.
The Obi-Wan show
I'm looking forward to
filming,
sassy Ian McGregor. Sassy Ewan McGregor is my favorite.
Yeah. Yes. So there's a lot of content coming out there, and then on the Star Wars side of things, Bad Batch just wrapped up its first season. I believe they've been confirmed for another season.
I think so. Yeah.
So Disney's got a lot going on. Like I can't even trying to remember what the last Disney animated movie, new Disney animated movie that I watched was.
I watched Luca.
I haven't watched Luca. I haven't watched Raya and the Last Dragon.
Both Raya was surprisingly I didn't really know much about it going into it, so my expectations were whatever. I super enjoyed that one. Both it and Luca were really were very classic Disney, but done obviously in their CG style. So super enjoyable.
Yeah, yep, I would agree. But anyway, so back to Loki. Fantastic show. Very well written. I'm very much looking forward to season 2. Very much looking forward to the return of Tom Hiddleston. Very much looking forward to see what's going on with Sylvie, since she's in the
thick of it.
Well, the last place we saw her was in the Citadel with the dead Kang the Conqueror. And you never know. With all of the variant Lokis and whatnot, I'm sure they'll probably make an appearance.
I mean, because Kid Loki is still alive, Gator Loki is still alive. There is a fan theory that classic Loki did not actually die, because he already established that he can create illusions so real that even Thanos would think he's dead.
Right.
So there's a theory that he didn't actually die in that, but he's kind of hiding behind the scenes to see what's happening, because he is still a Loki.
Yep, but I mean, we could probably do a whole other episode on fan theories and things like that. Maybe that's what we should do. I'm gonna write that down. Hold on a minute.
No, you won't. We'll forget about it until 10 minutes before we're gonna record and go, crap, what are we gonna talk about?
Fan theories on MCU. For those of you there, it's probably reversed, but showing the webcam, I have written it on a sticky note, which I will stick to my computer monitor
and promptly lose.
No, I've had a sticky note that's been there for weeks.
Oh, well, there you go.
So, yeah. Anyway, so I think that's probably going to wrap it up for us.
Probably,
this extra special, extra long episode of Non Sequitur Nerds. So we will go ahead and sign off for the night. As always, I will go through our ending shtick. Catch us on Anchor.fm, where we are currently hosted as our podcast platform. You can also find our podcasts on your favorite platforms, such as Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and about 6 others. If you check out Anchor.fm, search Non Sequitur Nerds, there are actually links to a bunch of our stuff. Find us on social media and Twitter at Non Sequitur Nerd, and Facebook.com/Non Sequitur Nerds, where we are the most active. So, with that, we will probably end for the night. I will.
That's a good point.
We'll go ahead and send you off. Have a good evening. Tim is probably going to try to spend the rest of his evening pulling a Saitama and trying to kill this fly that keeps annoying him.
Dude, you have no idea. I've been like,
So
you're gonna stab it at some point. Got a
you're
drill
gonna wind
bit
up
here. I'm gonna stab it with.
You're gonna stab yourself in the thigh with that drill bit.
I mean, probably.
Anyway, so for non sequitur nerds, I think we're going to sign off for the night. We'll see you next time. I'm Ian.
And I'm Tim. Have a good night, everybody.